Confucius once said, "The man who moves a mountain begins by carrying away small stones." Global governance is shifting. China's initiatives span continents. Railways link Asia to Europe. Ports expand. Digital networks grow. For some, this means opportunity. For others, influence and leverage. This is not only about competition, it's about who shapes trade routes and standards. Welcome to the panel, China and the Global Governance Initiative.
Thank you. I would like to start with Mr. Hongbo, who was the special representative of the Chinese government on European affairs from 2019 to 2025, United Nations Under Secretary General for Economic and Social Affairs, and a lot of other duties. And I really believe it's good to start with him to see and to hear what is your perception of this new Chinese initiative.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. This is the right moment to discuss global governance. First of all, I would like to thank AGIC of Azerbaijan and organizers for choosing this right topic, China and the Global Governance Initiative. As you know, China has been very busy with its own modernization process. At the same time, against this background of turbulences, uncertainties in the world, China is trying to offer its own wisdoms and proposals vis-à-vis the global governance. As we know that China, my president in particular, has put forward a global development initiative, global security initiative, global civilization initiative. The latest being Global Governance Initiative, GGI for short, because last year we marked the 80th anniversary of the United Nations. However, we are confronted with very complex issues. Human community has been challenged in many ways. The deficit in global governance is increasing and very worrying. My president put forward GGI in last September in Tianjin, and he was warmly greeted by Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Guterres. He said the key elements of that GGI are firmly consistent with the key principles of UN Charter and international law. That is not law. That is not all. In December last year, a group of friends for GGI was set up in New York UN headquarters. And later on, in February this year, a group of friends for GGI was set up in Geneva UN headquarters. Ladies and gentlemen, this GGI has been welcomed and supported by 150 countries and international organizations. If we compare the international community's reaction to GGI and to the Board of Peace, you will tell the difference. What is more, to join UN group of friends for GGI is free of charge. Now, let me just say a few words about key elements. 5 key elements enshrined in the GGI. First, sovereign equality. As far as we are concerned, countries rich and poor, big and small, they are equal. And in particular, the developing countries, landlocked countries, LDCs, and small island developing states, they have the same sovereignty and equality as rich countries and developed countries. Each country or member state of the United Nations, their sovereignty should not be and must not be violated. We understand that in the past, people always say, might is right. I think by initiating this idea, we're trying to send resounding message to the international community. Might does not make it right. Nobody, no member state of the United Nations should be placed on the menu. Second, the rule of international law. This is very important. When we're talking about this key element, we are talking about the legal system based on UN Charter and international conventions. I think no country in the world wishes to return to the law of the jungle. By saying this, we hope and we urge put end to impunity that enjoyed by a few countries. You are guilty of international crimes, but you can escape that. That international impunity must be ended. Number 3, that is multilateralism. Well, when we talk about multilateralism, people say, hey, the United Nations is not doing the job. It's really weak. Indeed, UN is not perfect. As a former Under-Secretary General of the United Nations, I could say this: United Nations organization and system needs improvement and reform. However, if we imagine without UN system, the situation would be much, much worse than what we have today. China is a staunch supporter of multilateralism. We do not in favor of any ideas like G2 govern the world. We do not support the idea of group confrontations. We are supporting the strengthening of the UN system. Number 4, people-centered element. This is very, very important. When we talk about people-centered, that is the starting point of all policy making. Now, we could say the lives of schoolgirls in Iran are as precious as those schoolgirls studying in New York. People of Gaza are just as important as the ordinary people working on Tel Aviv. So we have to pay attention to the human lives. They are all equal. Whatever we are going to do, we should keep in mind people first. But last but not least is action-oriented. I think I've been hearing a lot of complaints. Much has been said, not much has been done. So actions must be taken. And we should not pay lip service to our discussions. We should mobilize in collective efforts to translate the ideas and the plans into action, to keep the ball rolling. For instance, the Belt and Road Initiative, the cooperation with African countries and South-South cooperation. I think that when we start with the concrete actions, the world will change. This is only beginning because the idea was initiated on the last September. So we are waiting for the response and the participation of the rest of the international community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much. I believe for the introductory speech it was very interesting. I will try to challenge other participants to think a little bit also on the one issue, what means this Trump initiative regarding new multilateral approach like Board of Peace. Then we have Chinese initiative. That encouraged me that even the big players are thinking that there is, let's say, new phase in the development of the multilateral institutions. But we are in Azerbaijan, and it will be very interesting to hear how do you see this initiative and even the links with the China in these days. So, Mr. Minister, we have here Mikayil Jabbarov, Minister of Economy of the Republic of Azerbaijan. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable President, dear fellow panelists, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure and honor to join you at this discussion, and I'd like to start with expressing my apologies for being late for the beginning of the panel. I guess there are a few elements, and I will try to keep it within 3 minutes, that I will add as Azerbaijani angle. Well, first, Azerbaijani-Chinese relationship. This is a relationship of comprehensive strategic partnership. Azerbaijan has been participating at the as an invited country at the Shanghai Security Organization relevant meeting where the initiative has been put forward by President Xi Jinping, and Azerbaijan broadly supports this initiative. When it comes to I guess the main and important challenge for many of us, especially when we come from our own background, this is a background of the country, and yesterday His Excellency President Aliyev spoke extensively about it. Some other panels covered that Azerbaijan is a country which knows very well what the lack of ability or willingness to comply with international law means. This is a country which basically from day one of restoring of its independence have suffered directly from violation of international law. And the real question is very often boils down not to the principles embedded, but to the way how it is being implemented. A second element is with respect to the economic context of this. Again, taking an example of the region we are in, this is a first time since re-establishment of independence of all, as a matter of fact, former Soviet Union states, which do include all countries in Central Asia, all countries in Southern Caucasus. And for the first time in 35 years, the region has achieved peace, stability, opening borders, And this also has been possible by the final normalization between Armenia and Azerbaijan that's taking place as we speak. And in that sense, this is what we refer to as a middle corridor, and this is one of the central elements of our joint policy, which does link Central Asia and Southern Caucasus into one unit. It's not just important for trade, for transit of goods from China via this region to Turkey, to Europe, and vice versa. But I think what is even more importantly, it is being used as a proper and right tool for economic and trade and investment integration of the region. Because obviously when we look at the geographical context, especially in these particular days, I guess this is where these 2 points meet, because what is happening in the region as we speak is yet another demonstration that the current international order is going through transformative challenge, if I can put it in a very mild way. And the fact that there are, I guess, position of Azerbaijan can be summarized as follows, that any rules are better than no rules. Which will probably lead me to the third and concluding point. And this is the fact that it is exactly the formats, including this one, meaning formats of debates, exchanges, challenges, that ultimately are much more productive and do serve the common purpose. So I, again, in conclusion, take the opportunity to meet all of you. Thank you for continuing being patrons and participants of Global Baku Forum. And I wish you all the very productive stay in Baku. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Romano Prodi, the former Prime Minister of Italy and the former President of the European Commission.
Yes.
So it will be very interesting to hear your thoughts about this Chinese new multilateral institutions reform, let's say, or initiative.
Look, this is not my job to talk about reforms. I am basically an economist, and I see now how let's say, the balance of the economy is changing, and will change. Is changing everything in the world, And thank you for your presentation. My job is really to be formal. This is my job, and I am deeply interested on the role of China in the world equilibrium, because in a few days we shall have a meeting between Trump and Xi, and probably for different reasons they will go to this meeting in some way overconfident. Probably Trump will try to exploit this meeting, let's say, to stress the United States' role in the world, and Xi clearly will adapt the Chinese strategy of progressing without fighting in the old Chinese strategy. So it will be quite interesting. But in the meanwhile, the economic problems of the world are changing the strategy of the world, and we are in an incredible change of the world economic relations. You know, Professor Wu stressed it correctly, the Chinese proposal of the Silk Road. But I found it a very interesting proposal. I backed it. But then I found that following the change of world politics is transformed in some sort of cooperation in a China-Chinese project, in the sense that we had no governance of the Silk Road. It is a positive, let's say, attitude of China, especially concerning the neighbor countries, but it was not an appeal to some sort of international cooperation as it was supposed to be. And this is the new Chinese attitude, you know, to stay in some way alone and to be the leader in the, let's say, international political economy of the world. And this is what we have, what will be decisive in the future. Because let us simplify the situation we have now, you know. United States are closing the board, and the result is that Chinese exports to United States, of course, are direct exports, let us put it this way, are, let's say, decreasing strongly. But China overcapacity is still dominating the world trade, and even in the last, not only we have a surplus that is incredible, the surplus of last year, that supposed to be a year of crisis for Chinese export, has been a triumph. And if I analyze the first 2 months of 2026, is even more. Export to Europe are jumping, of course, export to the United States decreasing. So we have a very strange situation that you have to take account of about it. We have to try to create a more equal trade situation without the United States. And it's not easy. But it's possible, because if we analyze, United States imports are 9% of world imports. And so we can create a trade situation that can be balanced even without United States. But now the problem is the role of China, because if we take the relations, trade relation between China and Europe, I found that the imbalance is growing in an incredible way, you know. Even Germany, that was in some way balanced as a single country, last year they were, if I remember well, 80 billion imbalance in favor of China. So let us be very concrete. In the future, if we don't make any correction, we shall have an unbearable balance. Let's say, I foresee, if we don't agree, a European reaction, social reaction, because of the increasing imbalance. And we have to be very serious to tackle this problem, because there is not much time. In this moment, a possible agreement is feasible. Let us put it this way. China needs export to Europe, because especially after the decrease of United States presence, Europe is, let's say, by far the most important partner of China. And so there is a possibility of a compromise in which we deal together some sort of long-range strategy compatible with our relation. Otherwise, Europe will be obliged, but not by a bad will, by the social necessity, the social, let's say, behavior of any democracy, of any country to close the borders. And this will be a tragedy. This will be a tragedy. So, do I dream? Well, no, because we arrived close to this possibility. If you go back to 2020, in the, let's say, in the interval between the first Trump and Biden, there was the proposal of comprehensive agreement on investment that was, let's say, proposed by European Council under pressure of Angela Merkel. That was not a treaty, but was some sort of line to follow for the future in order to bring compatible our relations, And you remember well that when Biden arrived, he pressed in order to cancel it, and there were, let's say, fightings between China and the European Union because of Uyghur and because of the let's say, sanction on European member of parliament, and the European Parliament was asked to approve that. And so we went in a trap, and now I think that if we don't reconstruct it in short period of time, we shall have another clash in the world. And China is a pivot of that because of the great increase of it, And I do think that is important because of the difficulty of the Chinese government to increase quickly enough the internal consumption. And so export is vital for China. And so this is the only way out in order to save some sort of, let's say, compatible behavior.
Thank you, Mr. Prodi. Of course, there are a lot of questions regarding the economy. What does it mean, free trade, in the modern time? Is there any way to have free trade, free economy, which are the basic elements of the society which we had before? But this is a story which can discuss a little bit later. But I would like now to ask Mr. Pahor, Borut Pahor, the former president of Slovenia. It will be very interesting to hear your opinions about this global governance initiative.
Thank you, Chairman. As it has been said, this is the fourth initiative in last 4 or 5 years. Global initiative on development, security, civilization, and now on the governance. What basically we are watching at this very moment, I think we are watching some sort of repositioning China in global affairs, becoming slowly, step by step, number one in economy and probably in political power, not tomorrow, but not the day after tomorrow, but maybe next 10, 15 years. China slowly prepares itself for being the global leader. With this initiative, basically China does not change a lot in structure of international order, rule of law, institutions and all that stuff. But what is new is the role of Global South. Is that correct? Yes. So in a way, in this very moment, it represents itself as the leader of Global South, becoming slowly the leader of the global affairs. By the way, I have to say, this is very much my opinion, at this very moment, China is a winner of this historic geopolitical moment. I have been visiting China for almost 30 years. For the very first time back in 1996 as the chairman of Foreign Affairs Committee, and later on in different capacity as the Speaker of the House, Prime Minister, and the President. And in last 20 years has been done so much in preparing China for being a global leader that it is just amazing. Everybody who has been to China in last 5-10 years could observe a huge development. But it's not just about the economy. It is also about its political, repositioning in global affairs. Why I'm saying that China is a winner of this historic geopolitical moment? Look, it's there, not involved in any conflict whatsoever. Okay, supporting, Russia in a way, but just as far as it needs to have Russia for economic development, talking about energy and other stuff. By the way, at this very moment, Russia is involved in the war in Ukraine, United States involved in a war in Middle East. Okay, I'm not saying nothing about India is there, but China is quietly there, developing itself and preparing itself to be, maybe one day the global leader. And what is fascinating to me is that China is not making a revolution in international affairs. Basically, China is saying, with this initiative, let we use these institutions as they are, let them reform in a peaceful way, with no radical intervention in institutions, not to mention the international order. Let us take in consideration the new, relations between powers, and let us give the voice to the global south. And basically, that would mean that allows the international order to go through this transition in a peaceful way. This is, I think, that the basic of this global initiative on global governance. Well, let me finish by saying that I like China. This is not comment on its political system, it's their choice. But what is amazing at this very moment is that China is one of the countries that is very predictable, which is a strength today. You cannot say this for United States. You cannot say this in a way for Russia. And unfortunately, you can say this for European Union, but not in a good way. So China is predictable. China is stable. It's a pillar of international stability. So we will see what will happen in the future. What I would like to see is not to comment just on their development, which is extremely good, having in mind all those crises, economic crisis, market, and all others. But basically, China is doing well. I would like European Union to observe this, rise of China and to adapt to it, to have good relations with China, to do much more on trade and other, areas. Okay, we should insist in some criteria to get there, but nevertheless, I think that the time has come for European Union to open a new chapter with China. Not being a perfect country, nobody's perfect in international affair, but it is there, it's stable, it's predictable, does not want to change, hold the rules. It maintains the position on international order, United Nations, rule of international law. I think it's a good base to work with. So this is my position on China and this initiative.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our next speaker is Mr. Eldor Aripov, Director of the Institute of Strategic and Interregional Studies under the President of the Republic of Uzbekistan. So, Mr. Aripov, it will be very good to hear your opinion. Can this Chinese global governance initiative gain support around the world? To have your opinion how this is linked with the UN current institutions. Is it in accordance or is it against? And generally, because you are coming from the Central Asia country, it will be very interesting to hear your opinion about influence of China, economic influence. Is it supportive for the economic development of these countries, or is it, I don't know, against that? Let's be a little bit provocative. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Let me begin by expressing my sincere gratitude to the organizers, Nizami Ganjavi International Center, for invitation to speak here. It's really a great honor. In general, the term of this year's forum, bridging dividers in a changing world, could not be more timely. The world is indeed changing. And as recently Munich Security Conference just concluded, that the old world order with its norms and principles no longer exist. And one participant at that conference even suggested to rename departments of international law at the universities to the departments of the history of international. So I believe that is why this discussion, today's discussion, is so important. It's really about overcoming, divisions, differences, reaching some consensus which could really prevent the world from sliding into deeper uncertainty and conflict. And many speakers already talked a lot about Chinese global initiative. I believe that China is really not just offering alternative view of world order. China is suggesting something different philosophy of global governance. Instead of rules-based order which is shaped by a limited group of states, China speaks about principles that sound quite universal, that voices of small states should carry the same weight as major powers, that international law should apply to all without double standards, and that real multilateralism means working through the United Nations, not through the exclusive clubs. One may agree or disagree with this agenda, but I believe that China appeals to more shared principles rather than narrowly defined national interests, and that is why it really resonates with many parts of the world. But the main question, of course, is whether we will manage to transfer all these good ideas into the real life, into the reality. And I believe that the main question would be at what extent other states will see all these ideas not as only Chinese initiatives, but as a practical and beneficial for their own development, and therefore willing to support and institutionalize them within the existing multilateral framework, such as the United Nations. And second factor, which is crucial, I believe, also, is will depend on the level of the trust in China as a global and responsible actor capable of demonstrating from its own actions adherence to the principles it promotes. So you asked about the role of China in Central Asia. During last decade, actually, the role of China in Central Asia went through the most profound transformation. Just, 10 years ago, number one trade partner for all countries of Central Asia and number one investor for all countries of Central Asia was Russia. Today it's China. Last year, the trade turnover between China and Central Asia reached a historical figure, a record figure, $106 billion, almost double of the 2021 figure. The same with the investment figures, the same trend. Last year, the investments of China to the region reached $40 billion. And it's not only about economy. The whole architecture of engagement of China with Central Asia has evolved. Previously China worked with the region through the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Today China has its own format, Central Asia plus China, with a permanent secretariat. And during last summit of this format, China pledged $3.7 billion in loans and grants to Central Asian countries. Look at the infrastructural expansion, let's say, of China. Khargos dry port on China-Kazakh border, the largest inland logistic hub across Eurasia. Gas pipeline, which is stretching from Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan to China. It has become a major source of export revenue for Turkmenistan, for example. Or railroad, China, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, the construction of which began last year after 20 years of discussion. But the strategic importance of this road goes beyond just trilateral connectivity, because potentially it will be linked to the middle corridor. But at the same time, I believe that Central Asia is quite lucky because, China's strategic interest in largely match the development goals of Central Asia. It creates infrastructural projects which improve connectivity. Connectivity creates options, additional options for Central Asia. All Central Asian countries are landlocked countries. Uzbekistan is double landlocked. And these options strengthen strategic autonomy of Central Asia. And of course, Central Asian countries trying to pursue multi-vector balanced foreign policy. Of course, we engage Russia, but at the same time, European partners, Gulf states, Turkey, and the geopolitical landscape of Central Asia is changing too. You could see a lot of new players in Central Asia, like South Korea, like India, like Turkey. And I believe the main task for Central Asia is to ensure that all these emerging frameworks will complement rather than compete, that connectivity build bridges, not blocks, and that development partnership will strengthen sovereignty rather than weaken it. So from this point of view, I believe that China plays very important role in Central Asia, again, creating options which will maximize development options for Central Asian states. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Interesting view on this, but the next speaker will also have, I suppose, very interesting view on this Chinese initiative, because we have here Tobias Ellwood, who was the former Foreign Minister of the UK, and it will be very good to hear how do you react on this initiative.
This isn't me or you. Well, sir, thank you very much indeed. It's a pleasure to join this esteemed panel. I'm going to be a bit more provocative, if I may. I believe the world is far more dangerous and the trajectory is far more worrying. And after the Second World War, Oppenheimer and Teller and all those that were involved in the Manhattan Project came up with something called the Doomsday Clock. You may be familiar with this. And after the Cold War, it was set at quarter to midnight before the world destroyed itself. Before Donald Trump came in to his second term of office, it was at 90 seconds to midnight. And today it stands at 85 seconds to midnight. The elephant in the room is the fact that World War III is out there. It's a possibility, not in the form of World War II, but a world at conflict. And if we ourselves can't acknowledge that that's a possibility, then we are in denial and we are going to slide into that trajectory. The backdrop to this is clear, that our decision-making capability, the architecture, is now been outstripped by the pace of decision-making that is required. Things are just happening too fast as we move into a multipolar world. It started, if I may, with China and the World Trade Organization. That was the first time we embraced China, welcomed China to the international community, but on terms which China didn't then agree to in the longer term. They took advantage of a welcoming international community. It then came off the rails a bit further when the custodians of the Western designed global order lost its authority with poorly conducted adventurism in Afghanistan and Iraq. And that meant that America and others retreated from a sense of duty to defend and uphold, put fires out on an earlier basis. And then, of course, things are then compounded by other challenges that we all face. You've got energy bills, keeping the lights on, keeping our economy operating, the bun fight over water, also the race to harness AI and quantum technology, domination of space. These are all things that nations are competing against each other, and there aren't any clear rules or indeed cooperation to make that work. And this absence of consensus of the big nations, the top nations, agreeing on what the new rules are in our complicated world does mean that cooperation is starting to erode, and globalization itself as a complex, an entity, is then falling apart. Consequently, ever more states are taking advantage of the fact that there is an absence of rules, an absence of a top table to agree on how to put these fires out. Clear examples, what Russia is doing in Ukraine. It wouldn't have wandered into Ukraine if it felt the world would have stood up against it, but it decided to plow on, and still it's able to claim a form of victory. Yes, America, what it did in Venezuela, however right or wrong or bad that leader was, what it did was breaching international laws. What it did in Iran, likewise, its claim on Greenland too. These goes against the actual ethos, the spirit of Bretton Woods. And I'm afraid China too. You have absolutely grown in an incredible capacity, but the treatment of the Uyghur population, that goes against what the UN stands for. The theft of IP, intellectual property, what's happened in the in the South China Sea goes against the rules of the international seas and so forth, and your cyber attacks as well. So absolutely, you're welcome to the international stage, but to claim that you are supportive of the UN in its entirety is only half correct. So all these nations, all these superpowers need to do more, or we slide to war. And then we have three competing visions as to where our global order goes. You've got the original Bretton Woods, as it was in post-1945, looking very, very fragile indeed. Some people say it's broken. You then have, I'm afraid there is a China model, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which is NATO and the EU put together, is a powerful bloc of Asian countries that are adopting its own set of rules. You mentioned the One Belt, One Road, a great initiative, but the terms, the debt terms that many dozens of countries are signed up to means that they actually don't benefit from it. They become subservient to China's way of thinking. And then the BRICS as well as a challenge to the G7. This is an alternative vision by China, understandably taking advantage of the fact that there isn't a consensus to where our world goes. So our world is splintering. Our world is splintering to two, and then separately from there. And we need to ask ourselves, where is the off-ramp? Where is the ability to craft coexistence? And if we don't acknowledge this big picture, the fact that World War III is a possibility, then we'll continue meeting in pleasant environments such as this, but in denial as to where our world is going. Thank you.
Thank you. So, you are enough provocative, believe me. But this is then the new challenge for the next speaker, who was not involved directly to the politics and could have a little bit more natural view on this issue. So let's hear the opinion of Mr. Josef Mondl, economist and sinologist, former director of the China Competence Center, University of St. Gallen. The floor is yours.
Thank you. You know, I'm not here as a diplomat or as a politician. I'm a sinologist, I'm an academic, and I try to zoom out a little bit. So I think maybe it's quite a good approach, you know, to step out of your own room and then try to look at it from a different angle. Because this basically is what communication is about, or when we talk, you know, try to find new ways of dialogue, it's zooming out. And I think we got stuck a little bit here. Anyway, so what I'm trying to do is look at that issue of China's global governance initiative from maybe a different perspective. So I think if we want to understand China's role in global governance, we need not to begin with foreign policy, but with China's internal operational logic. So this is what many people don't understand. This is called the system of dual bureaucracy, or the dual governance structure of China. So in Chinese, it's 党政体制. So what is it? So this system aligns ideological direction, long-term ideological direction from the party with technocratic implementation by the state. So this means that this system enables China to formulate and execute global strategies that are consistent, continuous, and on scale. So if we look at this through this lens, we talk not about 3 or 4 or 5 Chinese initiatives, it's 7 initiatives. So basically you have 7 initiatives and you have to put them together. It's the BRICS Plus, it's the Belt and Road, it's the AIIB, it's the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, it's the Global Civilization Initiative, and so on. So let's look at it from that perspective. Again, we have to zoom out and not get stuck on the Belt and Road, because then you only see a one-sided picture. So basically, if you look at this through this lens, those 7 initiatives, they are not isolated projects. They are an integrated framework of pillars for globalization. So it's a parallel ecosystem for globalization, which is modular, it's scalable, and it's open to variable geometry. So if you look at Western governance, now Western governance has historically been functional. You know, fixed terms, fixed rules, fixed membership, a kind of one-size-fits-all approach. And we got used to that. It's very comfortable. Now we try to look at China's approach. So if you look at China's approach in global governance, it's what we can call a platform-based approach. So what is a platform-based approach? It is an approach that is outcome-oriented, it's flexible, and it is designed for participation without ideological convergence. So this is the reason why China's initiatives have spread so fast, and especially in the global south. You know, countries don't look for abstract options. They want to have practical outcomes and not abstract visions. This is the point. So, if we look at the whole picture, and if we try to then raise the question, so what is the real question we are facing when we talk about globalization or multilateralization or the role of China? I think the deeper question is not whether China is rising and the West is declining. We look at it from a competitive perspective. So we are afraid that we might decline, we might fall back, and then on the other side we see a China that is rising and everything is wrong. I think the real question is how we can build interoperability between those ecosystems. So it's different government ecosystems, and when we look at the word of today, when we talk about fragmentation in today's world, basically what I think, it's not chaos. Basically, fragmentation today is a competition of ecosystems. And now the real challenge is, can we bridge those ecosystems? Because states, especially on the global south, they don't consider China as a competitor to global order, like we like to do that, but rather consider China as a, a supplier of governance where traditional institutions struggle to deliver. This is where we are. So I think, if you really want to bridge divides in our world in transition, which is the topic of this event, we need to understand, again, we need to zoom out, and we need to understand China's initiative, or the logic and the structure behind China's initiatives a little bit deeper. So basically, to sum it up, and we have to understand that model. So this is the zoom out picture of what I try to, name the overall strategy. So on the top level, it's a three-layer approach. Basically, China's approach to global governance, or China's approach to whatever that relates to globalization. You can name it global economic development or global political development or whatever. It's always based on a three-layer approach. So on the top level, we have the Global Governance Initiative. It's a vision. It's a name, it's a brand, it's a global vision. But the global vision is useless if there is no content. So on the second level, which is the middle level, we have the 7 major global initiatives, Belt and Road, AI, Beyond Sound, you name it, you know those. So the Global Governance Initiative, in my eyes, is not just, a new one standalone vision, it's the expression and the wording for a strategic vision based on those 7 initiatives. Now, those 7 initiatives are the operational pillars of China's globalization and of China's initiatives. So they are coordinated, they are integrated. Again, it's not standalone projects, and we should not look at those as standalone projects, which we tend to do. We deal with the One Belt and Road, and then we get stuck on the One Belt and Road, and then one day we talk about the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and we see it as a block. We have to get rid of that naive view and that very Western view. We have to take a look at the big picture, okay? So, when we take a look at that, I want to sum up. I really want to keep the time. So basically, I personally believe, and it might not be, again, a diplomatic expression, but it's, I think, an analysis of my 40 years of experience with China. China doesn't want to build a counter-world. It is building a second world. Now, the point for us is not containment, but it's connection. How do we do that? And this is about dialogue on the one side, but you only can have dialogue if you are up to that. And we are not up to that. Why are we not up to date? Because I teach at the university, we teach all those nice courses, and people are listening, and everybody's excited about China's development, and people go there, they take a look, and they gaze around. We got no idea. And the reason why we got no idea is because we have not developed institutional learning and competence building over the last 30 years. And this is what we need to do. Thank you very much. I kept my time, and thanks for having me here.
Thank you. We have 15 minutes left, so I propose 1, maximum 2 questions from the audience, and then final comments from all the participants here. So, do we have questions from the audience? Yes, there is one here. Do we have a microphone? Here. Hello? Here.
Thank you. I would like to ask a question of anybody in the panel who wishes to respond. It seems to me that people, when they say that China's entry took advantage of the existing rules in the WTO, it's important to remember that China did not formulate the WTO. They just stepped in and worked within a framework that existed there. At the same time, the dispute mechanism of the WTO which is one of the few agencies that have such a mechanism, has been blocked by the United States, who refused to appoint the judges. As you know, even though in earlier periods, the United States and Europe went to the dispute mechanism over the difference between Airbus and Boeing and how much subsidies they were getting. So the inability to complain about that is not really the fault of China. Third, it was not China that really upended all the rules of trade that were supposed to be governed by agreements and the WTO. It was very much the United States' second Trump administration with the tariffs that were put in and removed and put in and removed, as we all know. So as a result of that, isn't there a need for the Western powers to either support the development initiative, the global government initiative, which is based on primacy of national sovereignty, or to come up with an alternative and present it forward?
Thank you. And one question more, and that's the end then. Oh, it's there.
Thank you. My question is about predictability, and my question for our European guests. Which country is more predictable for European country in this historical period? United States or China? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I propose first final round. Final round to start with the minister, because minister has duty in the parliament and we have to give him a chance to be there exactly on time. Mr. Minister, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Which means that I'm not responding to the questions which are voiced. My honorable fellow panelists will do it. Maybe just 3 observations. One, I think topic of this panel is not China, but its initiative. And probably it is natural to expect of any state actor to pursue its and protect and promote its national interests, including within the framework of the global initiatives. And therefore, the focus of the discussion, which is extremely educating for me personally as someone coming from economic cooperation part of it and economic implications, is the fact that the initiative is out along with other approaches is good or bad for the state of the world, quote unquote. And probably my concluding comment in the interest of time. I echo what my friend and colleague from Uzbekistan has mentioned, that there is a stabilization, and stability is an important word out there. And I think that when it comes to quote-unquote middle powers, smaller nations, and I guess this also refers to the question from the audience by my honorable colleague Farhad Mammadov, is which approach is viewed as more predictable and as more stable, and that is a factor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will leave you to be the last, and because starting first to be the last. I will start again from that side, but please be brief, just 2 minutes each participants.
Yes, let me respond to the question. Absolutely right. The World Trade Organization is not operating. There are 4 pillars to our global order. The first is the United Nations Security Council. Security, that isn't working because the veto system paralyzes the United Nations. Secondly is trade. The World Trade Organization is paralyzed because America hasn't appointed its judges, so the appeal system is broken. Then there's the laws, the International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Courts. Many countries, including America, Russia, China, aren't even participants there. So how does that operate? And then finally, there's development, the IMF and the World Bank. And they are too slow to react to the vast changes that are taking place in our world. These are the 4 pillars. And if countries don't invest in them to make them work, then we can't be surprised that our global order starts to crumble. So it's not new. It's been said in this conference before. We need to upgrade our global order. And China, I think, has a responsibility there to participate in making that happen, given it's such a growing power and influence across the world. But it does need to convince the world what its long-term intentions are, because from the outsider, it does look like you're crafting something which is China-centric. And that's to repeat what the West did to create something after 1945, which is Western-centric.
Mr. Mondl.
I first try to answer question number 2. You know, if you talk about predictability, you need knowledge. So basically, otherwise it's an assumption, you just have a guess. And we don't want to have a lucky guess. So it's very simple, you have to do the math. You don't have enough information and knowledge about China, China's development, anything. So if you want to use predictability and you want to be certain, you can less predict about China than about the West because you have more knowledge about the West. But this does not mean that it's the truth. So you have to increase your rate of predictability by knowing more and building up your knowledge. Then we can answer the question. Now, question number 1 is yet, you know, maybe you don't like that, but I always have to come back about that. And I've been doing that for many years. Don't look at everything from a Western perspective. You know, we talk about change, disruption, anything, change. Look at yourself, and we need to learn. We need to build up competence. And why do we need to build up competence with regards to China? Because it's mathematics. It's number 1 here, it's number 1 there, it's going out, it's doing. And then I turn it around. I dare to say China does not know a lot about the world outside. So also China needs to learn. And China wants to learn. But if you want to figure out what is there to learn and what is there to have dialogue about, first both sides need to increase their competence. Dialogue, initiatives, learning, changes of our education system. We don't need to become Chinese, you know, but we need to step out and we need to build up new competence, not just Western competence. Don't get stuck there. And there's a whole world out there. This is a chance and this is an opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aripov.
I believe the main question right now is not about China, about the future for world order. And the problem is that existing multilateral institution could not generate consensus among major powers. So we have 2 options, either to try to find consensus and build world order on the principles and norms which shared by everyone, or return to the logic of deterrence. Unfortunately, what we see right now in Europe, in the Middle East, the growing tendency of return to this logic. And that is why I believe that dialogue is so needed, including with China on this issue. And we need to use every possible opportunity to launch this dialogue and try to build this needed consensus. Thank you.
Much, President Pahor.
So I'm a former politician, so I allow myself to be a little bit naive. This initiative is coming in the time when 2 other powers, Russia and the United States, are involved in wars. Meanwhile, China is there, stable and in a way predictable. So I in a way, cherish this initiative because it is an attempt. Okay, it's in Chinese national interest, but also in the interest of the many of the countries in the world to transform the global order by peaceful means, not by using force. And that is why it is an initiative to talk about.
Thank you, Mr. Prodi.
Well, I should be telegraphic, you know. I want only to tackle the problem of WTO. Now it's absolutely, it was difficult to reform it. Now it's absolutely impossible in the new situation. And then I was very simple to take a consideration. In the last years, I did a deep analysis of trade between China and Europe. And the result is very simple. We shall not be able to export anything to China in the future. So when you start with this position, clearly you understand that either you, let's say, trade and you try to have some sort of compromise, or even this great flow of trade will be broken. There is no alternative, either to be wise and deal specifically in this direction.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prodi. So now, Mr. Hongbo, you have a lot of, let's say, things to respond. So it will be interesting to hear your final thoughts.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, and also distinguished panelists. It's a very interesting, lively discussions, have a lot of enlightening thoughts and ideas. I just want to pick up some of the points and respond very briefly, as brief as I can. Number one, is China taking advantage of the existing international system? Let me tell you a true story. A senior diplomat was telling the Americans, you know, China has beaten you within the rules and regulations formulated by yourself. Nowadays, those who are responsible for rules and regulations thought they cannot beat us, they're going to change the rules. Second, the predictability. That's easy. You are advised to look at the 15th five-year plan of China. You will know what China is going to do in the next 5 years. Whereas in the United States, the president wouldn't tell you what he's going to do by the end of the year. So the answer is different. It's obvious. Mr. Prodi mentioning trade. Trade is very important. And China is not working for huge amount of trade surplus. That's why we have every year import-export taking place in China. Encourage imports from foreign countries. This is the only country that has been doing this. Secondly, we're trying to encourage to enhance domestic consumption. China is a large market, has a vast potential. The mid-level people is 400 million and more. It's still growing. The number is much, much more than the population, entire population of the United States of America. We are willing to buy. But the question is, when we talk about overcapacity, we have to be very careful. I'm not economist, but from limited, humble knowledge, if you do not produce more than you need, there's no trade. You trade nothing with others. The question is, when we produce more, China sufficient, they will want to sell to foreign countries. They need them. The question is, our products are more competitive and cheaper and better quality. Now, people use the idea of the national security to extend that idea to block the trade. So that is not the way forward. We would like to work with the European Union and other countries to have a win-win situation. And talk about the Chinese initiative. Indeed, it was initiated by China. But when 150 countries and organizations join the groups, that's collective ownership, owned by international community. How many countries we have? According to the United Nations, 193 and plus some small countries. If 150 countries join the game, recognized initiative, it is not initiative from one country. It's collective idea. Now, the ethnic groups in China was also mentioned. Let me say this. I have a true story. I visited with a group of foreign ambassadors in China to Qinghai, where a large number of Muslim people living. They were saying the Muslim China are so happy because they are living in China, not in Iraq, not in Iran, not in Afghanistan. I think the message is very clear. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think it was a very interesting discussion, and I will ask the organizers to think to have same issue next year so that we can see what really happened on the ground. Thanks to all participants being very strict in limited time. Thank you all. Thank you.